Thank you, everyone. We will start now for the afternoon session. I want to first thank everyone for keeping their interventions really short, keeping to time. And also, it was a very difficult agenda, a very complicated one. And, thanks for following the instructions, and we completed it. So we are already behind time for half a day. So I will be keeping the speaker list short, and I will read out the speaker list to make sure everyone is aware who is on the speaker list. So hopefully we can catch up. Thank you. Okay, now we will look at Agenda 42, implementation of the priority recommendations from CITES. The document is submitted by the Standing Committee. I will now open the floor to parties. Zimbabwe, you have the floor.
Sorry, Chair. Good afternoon, Chair. We are not sure whether we had completed the previous document, 76.7, because you had said we would resume after the lunch break. So I want clarity on that.
Zimbabwe, for 76.1, I've sent away for a drafting group unless you have already discussed and come to a conclusion on that. I can do it after Agenda 42. Is that okay?
Thank you, Chair. I presume you are referring to 76.7?
76.7, sorry, yeah.
Yes. So my recollection says you had said we will presume discussions on this after lunch on the issue of forming a drafting group. So I thought we were going to continue on that, because we still feel
No, I have formed a drafting group, right? I've asked that the African states go and form a drafting group to work on the amendments and come back. So unless you have already decided on the draft decision amendments, I can do it after Agenda 42.
Okay, with all due respect, Chair, our understanding was we had not yet agreed on the need for that drafting group, but we still feel there's no need for that, and we may want us to vote on that, whether there's need for a drafting group to be created to look into the item.
Can I confirm that you said that you're not agreeable to form a drafting group for 76.7?
Yes, Chair, we don't agree about that. We think we should vote on that, if there is any need for us to proceed as such.
Okay, parties, just sorry for that. Okay, so I understand from Zimbabwe that they have asked for a vote on 76.7. So we will have to go back to that item, 76.7. We will deal with that first before we go to 42. Zimbabwe, can I confirm that you have asked for a vote on 76.7 to form a drafting group? Is that clear? Can you just clarify? Zimbabwe, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, we've asked for a vote on that, on whether there's need for a group, a drafting group.
Okay, I will now just say out what we are voting for. So this is agenda item 76.7. So if you vote yes, it means you support the formation of a drafting group. If you vote no, it means you do not support the formation of a drafting group. I repeat again, if you vote yes, means you support the formation of a drafting group. If you vote no, means you do not support the formation of a drafting group. Is it clear? Before I proceed, can I make sure everyone's cards is inserted properly? Can you please check? So this is a vote for agenda item 76.7. The voting type is by normal vote. The vote of the European Union will be cast by the individual member states. The vote is on. If you say yes, you support the formation of a drafting group. If you vote no, means you do not support the formation of a drafting group. Since this is a vote on a procedural matter, the decision will be adopted by simple majority. Technician, are you ready? Parties, you have 40 seconds to cast your vote. The ballot is open now.
Sorry, movements are not allowed during the vote, especially observers are not allowed to be in the delegate seat. Please return to your section, please.
Forty seconds is up. The ballot is now closed. The result is that there will be a formation of a drafting group. Technician, please show the result on the main screen. Please show the individual votes of the parties on the screen. Thank you. Technician, please show the individual votes of the parties on the screen. Thank you. Mozambique, I don't know if you pressed the button correctly or wrongly. You can have the floor.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, so for Agenda 76.7, there will be a drafting group formed, and the drafting group will look at 20AA, little b, in document 76.7, Annex 1. So I will put this item on hold until you come back. And the drafting group will be with the African elephant range states. Thank you. Kenya, you have the floor.
Madam Chair, are we forming the drafting group at this stage, or you'll constitute it later?
It will be all African elephant range states only. Yes, Kenya? Okay.
So all the range states will be part of the drafting group. Thank you.
Okay, so now I go to Agenda 42. The document is submitted by the Standing Committee on implementation of the priority recommendations from CITES. I open the floor to parties for comments. Singapore, you have the floor.
Madam Chair, Singapore supports Secretariat's proposed draft decisions as they provide more focus and deliverable outcomes on the priority recommendations that remain partially implemented or outstanding. Regarding the draft decision on data validation protocol under paragraph 27B, Singapore has submitted multiple data queries through the CITES online system but has received limited responses. When identified in trade routes, we elect access to bills of lading or detailed shipment documentation necessary to validate the transit claims against our customs records. To address these concerns, Singapore supports Decision 20AA with the amendment that the Secretariat shall, in consultation with Traffic and the CITES Technical Advisory Group, and take into account any views provided by parties through a notification, revise the draft protocol. This will ensure that transit countries' perspectives are considered in developing fair validation procedures. Singapore looks forward to the development of clear validation procedures that will enhance the reliability of CITES data and support more informed decision-making under the Convention. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Singapore, can you please repeat your edits again?
Yes, Madam Chair. Just give me a minute. So, we support Decision 20AA with the amendment that the Secretariat shall, in consultation with Traffic and the CITES Technical Advisory Group, and take into account any views provided by parties through a notification, revise the draft protocol.
Malaysia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Malaysia wishes to express its sincere appreciation to the Secretariat for the comprehensive report on the progress made in implementing the CITES review recommendations. We also acknowledge with gratitude the valuable contributions of Traffic and the Technical Advisory Group in supporting this important work. Malaysia supports the draft decisions proposed by the Secretariat as outlined under item 20.AA, 20.BB and 20.CC. We note the document's identification of key challenges, particularly those related to data validation and the integration of diverse data sets. In relation to data validation, Malaysia recognizes the practical difficulties faced, including limited clarity from parties, issues linked to historical data, and the absence of clearly defined process to address outstanding queries. In this regard, Malaysia hopes that with the guidance and technical support of the Technical Advisory Group, a clear and practical framework can be developed to overcome these challenges. Such a framework should ideally include standardized reporting guidelines, a structured mechanism for resolving data queries, and strengthened capacity building initiatives to assist parties in providing accurate and timely information. Thank you, Madam Chair.
UAE, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. The UAE supports the intervention made by Singapore. The UAE thanks the Secretariat, the Standing Committee, Traffic, and CITES Technical Advisory Group for their sustained effort in implementing the recommendation from the CITES review. Chair, we wish to emphasize that at the outset that the present discussion under Doc 42 is directly linked to the discussion we had yesterday under Doc 76.5 on the CITES report. The credibility, robustness, and governance of CITES as addressed in this item directly determine how categorization and NEAP-related conclusions under Doc 76.5 will be interpreted and applied. For the UAE, these two agenda items must therefore be considered together as parts of a single system. Chair, the UAE wishes to share the following observation. First, with respect to the renewal of decisions 19.94 to 19.96, the UAE does not support the renewal as drafted. We support the Secretariat's proposal to replace them with a targeted and technically focused packages of new decisions. Second, the UAE supports in principle the new draft decisions directed to the Secretariat and Traffic, including those on feasibility assessment, strengthening synergies with partner organizations, reviewing in the term of references of the CITES tag, examining key drivers of illegal trade, and assessing the relationship between ivory stockpile and illegal trade. However, we support draft decision 20.AA and 20.BB only with the amendment as follows. Chair, document 42 confirms that the data validation protocols remain incomplete. Unresolved validation queries and uncertain trade route information continue to affect analytical outcomes. The UAE therefore proposes adding a new subparagraph under draft decision 20.AA, requiring that unresolved and contested records be flagged, appropriately weighted, and supported by sensitivity analysis when used in CITES outputs. Second, methodological transparency remains inadequate. Recommendation 7 is only partially implemented, and no online SOP exists. The UAE therefore proposes amending draft decision 20.BB to explicitly requiring publication of methodology by traffic, including data handling rules, assumptions, model structure, and analytical limitation. Third, Chair, there is currently no due process step allowing parties to review draft country-level data and CITES data or analytical interpretations before submission to the Standing Committee. The UAE proposes introducing an explicit procedural safeguard under draft decision 20.AA requiring party review prior to finalization. The UAE stands ready to work constructively in the working group with the remaining, on the remaining issues. Thank you, Chair.
UAE, do you have specific text? Because we couldn't really, we understand the context, but not the text that you want.
Thank you, Chair. So the new subparagraph under 20AA would read, V, clearly flag unresolved or contested records, comma, including those involving uncertain or potentially falsified routing information, comma, and ensure that such records are appropriately weighted and accompanied by sensitivity analysis when included in CITES analyses.
UAE, I'll just repeat and just see if it's correct. So you're asking for 28A to include another draft decision, clearly flag unresolved or contested, no, clearly flag unresolved or contested records, including those uncertain, falsified routing information, and ensure that such records are appropriately weighted and accompanied by sensitivity analysis when included in ITIS analysis.
Yes. Chair, after or contested records, to include, to add, including those involved uncertain or potentially falsified routing information, and they remain the same. Chair, if you allow me, there is another addition I mentioned.
Just hang on, just let's get this first. Okay, yeah, please go ahead.
Okay. Also another subparagraph under 20AA covering party due process step. It will read, provide each party with its draft, it is country level data set and any accompanying analytical interpretations for comment prior to finalization, comma, and shall incorporate party clarifications, comma, or indicate where these could not be reflected, comma, before submitting the final ITIS report to the standing committee.
I'll give the floor to the Secretariat to read out the edit.
Thank you, Chair. And just to clarify, we understand that the interventions from the UAE will result in us coming up with 20AA and the existing paragraph being A, B, the text read out by the Chair, and this will be C under 20AA. Provide each party with its draft ITIS country level data set and any accompanying analytical interpretation prior to finalization, and shall include party clarifications or indicate where these could not be reflected before submitting the final report to the Standing Committee. We assume or the Conference of Parties, as the ITIS report is considered by the Conference of Parties. If you can reflect if we captured it correctly. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Secretariat. So this would be in the new proposed recommendation directed to the Secretariat, 20AA, and as you mentioned, an extra subparagraph. But because it will be directed before the Standing Committee, because the Standing Committee is the one who considered the categorization based on ITIS report. Consider the country's compliance measures based on the ITIS report.
I'll give the floor to the Secretariat to clarify.
Thank you, Chair. Just to clarify, in terms of the procedure set out in the Annex to Resolution Conf 1010, the Standing Committee that meets directly prior to the COP actually considers the document, the ITIS report submitted for the Conference of the Parties. And so there is no special report on ITIS for that Standing Committee. That Standing Committee considers the ITIS report to the Conference of the Parties. That includes the categorization. So just to keep that in mind. Thank you.
Japan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In light of resource constraints and considering duplication, Japan generally supports the idea by the Secretariat that focus on the actions that has not been implemented or has been partially implemented. At the same time, however, we would like to point out that, as UA mentioned, the discussion for Agenda 76.5 may affect the list. Thank you, Madam Chair.
European Union, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I'm speaking on behalf of the EU and its 27 member states. We do not support the amendments as proposed by the UAE. We note the importance of the review of ITIS and the recommendations and draft decisions created following the review. Whilst we appreciate the work of the Secretariat in creating a new set of draft divisions, focusing on those ITIS review recommendations that are only partially or yet to be implemented, we would rather support the original draft decisions in the document as they were proposed by SC 78. We are of the view that all the ITIS recommendations should remain on the agenda until fully completed. This is especially relevant for recommendations 11, 17, 18, and 25. To summarize, we would therefore support the renewal of decisions 1994 to 1996 and the draft decisions as proposed by the Standing Committee 78 and not as revised by the Secretariat. Thank you.
India, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. India thanks the Standing Committee for the document CoP20 Doc 42. India welcomes the efforts made by the Secretariat, Traffic, and the MIC ITIS tag in implementing the priority recommendation from ITIS review. India recognizes ITIS as a critical tool for monitoring illegal ivory trade trends globally and reaffirms support for enhancing analytical robustness and transparency. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Kuwait, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Kuwait supports Singapore and UAE position. ITIS is still not clear enough and parties cannot be judged by a system that uses incomplete, unverified, all data. Many ITIS records remain unresolved, yet they still affect how countries are viewed. Kuwait believes that before ITIS is used in any compliance decision, the method must be fully transparent, all data must be checked, and party must have a real coherence to correct mistakes. We need an ITIS system that is clear and fair. Thank you, Chair.
Qatar, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. The State of Qatar supports the position of United Arab Emirates and Singapore. Thank you.
Lebanon, you have the floor.
Le Liban confirme son appui aux amendements proposés par les Émirats arabes unis.
Morocco, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Le Maroc appuie également les propositions formulées par les Émirats arabes unis. Merci.
Thailand, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Thailand align ourselves with the comment made by Kuwait and Japan. Thank you.
I have a party that pressed the button, but I do not see the country. So I think your card, it's not in, or technician, could you just, yeah, I think it's the card. So whoever, okay, so United States of America, okay, Togo. Togo, you have the floor.
Merci beaucoup pour le comité permanent pour la proposition. Le Togo soutient la proposition de l'Union européenne. Merci beaucoup.
United States of America, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. The United States supports the original document recommendations.
Saudi Arabia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We support the UAE position.
Niger, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. En tout cas, nous nous opposons et nous supportons la position de l'Union européenne et confirmée par le Togo. Merci.
Yep, I'm closing the speaker list now. So I have Switzerland, Benin, Congo, United Kingdom, and Nigeria. Switzerland, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Switzerland shares the view expressed by the EU.
Benin, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Nous soutenons la position de l'Union européenne.
Congo, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame. Nous soutenons la position de l'Union européenne.
United Kingdom, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. We also support the position of the EU.
Nigeria, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nigeria supports the intervention made by the EU and opposes the amendment proposed by the UAE. Thank you.
Okay, so I have heard from the floor that there was no consensus in UAE's edits, but I'm just looking for views on Singapore's suggested edit, where parties are actually given an opportunity to provide feedback through a notification about the draft protocol. Because I did not hear views on that, it was mostly on UAE's proposed amendments. European Union, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Could you please repeat the additions by Singapore? Thank
So
you.
Singapore's edit was 20AA, 27B, 20AA. The Secretariat shall, in consultation with Traffic and the CITES Technical Advisory Group, and take into account any views provided by parties through a notification, revise the draft protocol, and then it follows. Is that clear? I can repeat again. 28A, the Secretariat shall, in consultation with Traffic and the CITES Technical Advisory Group, and take into account any views provided by parties through a notification, revise the draft protocol, and then it follows. European Union, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. We can agree to this amendment if it's made sure that it's included in the original recommendation and also if the notification is also sent out to observers. Thank you.
United States of America.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We would also be able to support that recommendation if you were to include revise as appropriate. Thank you.
UAE, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. We can accept the amendment by Singapore as it is. Thank you.
Malaysia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. We would like to support Singapore as well. Thank you.
Okay, just to summarize what I heard from the EU and the US on the amendments, on the additional edits, and then I want to get views again. So 28A, it will read now. The Secretariat shall, in consultation with Traffic and the CITES Technical Advisory Group, and taking into account any views provided by parties and observers through a notification, revise as appropriate the draft protocol in Annex 2A, then it follows. I repeat again, the Secretariat shall, in consultation with Traffic and the CITES Technical Advisory Group, and taking into account any views provided by parties and observers through a notification, revise as appropriate, comma, the draft protocol in Annex 2A, and then it follows. I want to see if there's any objection from the floor. Kenya, you have the floor.
Kenya will wish to support the revision as read by and proposed by the EU and the US. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. So UAE, I would like to seek your view that your edits is mainly addressing on the protocol and the methodology, and this will be addressed through the notification. So I do not see the need to add additional edits anymore because all those could be addressed in 20AA amendments. So I will proceed to agree that the amendments to 20AA will remain as I read out just now. If you have any strong objections, please do press the button.
Thank you, Chair. If we are moving ahead with the original recommendations, then we can accept with the amendment that you have mentioned.
No, so what I meant was we will not be, because I did not hear consensus in support of UAE's suggested edits. So what I'm saying is that your edits are mainly on the draft protocol and the validation protocol and the methodology, which would be addressed in 20AA amended version, where parties can actually provide feedback. So are you agreeable that we will, I will not take in, as in I will not take in any more on UAE's edits, and will just remain with the revised 20AA as I read just now? So I want to see if there's any strong objection to that. UAE, yeah, please.
No objection from our side.
Thank you very much. So I will read out again what we are agreeing to. All right, I will read. Okay, European Union, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Could you just please clarify that we are still talking about the original decision recommendations and not as amended by the Secretariat? Thank you.
EU, yes, we are still going through the original by the Standing Committee, the recommendations. Yeah. So now I will read out what we are agreeing. So the committee agree the renewal of decisions 19, okay, sorry, okay. So we are looking at document 42, recommendations 27. So the committee agree to the renewal of decisions 19.94 to 19.96 on the implementation of the priority recommendations from the review of the CITES program. And adopt and agree to the following draft decision on the CITES data validation protocol directed to the Secretariat 20AA as amended. The Secretariat shall, in consultation with Traffic and the CITES Technical Advisory Group, and taking into account any views provided by parties and observers through a notification, revise as appropriate the draft protocol in Annex 2A of document SC 78.65.2, taking into consideration the different scenarios associated with the status of records subject to inquiry and their implications for the CITES analysis. Directed to the Standing Committee, 20BB, the Standing Committee shall, through the CITES subgroup, consider the revised draft protocol prepared under Decision 20AA. I would also open the floor to observer organizations and non-parties as well, but also for parties, if you have any objections to what I went through just now, please press the button. Thank you. Okay, so I see no requests from the floor. This agenda item is closed. Thank you very much. I now move to agenda 43. The document is submitted by the Standing Committee. The Conference of Parties is invited to adopt the set of criteria to be used by Traffic in Step 1, Paragraph A of the guidelines to the NIAP process, and to delete decisions 19.97 and 19.98. I open the floor to parties. European Union, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. The EU and its member states generally support the criteria in paragraph 13A of the working document and the deletion of the draft decisions. We have one general point of clarification and one correction to add. To achieve transparency and clarity, the contextual criteria should be included in the guidelines of the NIAP process as decided at SC 78. This could be included in para A as follows: contextual information, supporting information including corruption perception index, CPI, organized crime index, OCI, and published literature, CITES reports, and peer-reviewed literature can be used by traffic as contextual information in the identification of parties requiring attention in the CITES reports. In addition, the exclusion criteria in paragraph 13a is outdated and should be updated. We already provided the wording to the Secretariat. It should read, exclusion criteria guided by the latest updated CITES data, reviewed by the MIC CITES tag, should be applied to CITES analysis. The reason is that exclusion criteria should reflect the latest science for each analysis, which could include adjusting relevant timeframes or applying different thresholds for different seizure sizes. Thank you.
European Union, can I get you to repeat again on the edits?
Yes. The point of clarification is that the criteria should be included in the guidance, and this could be included in paragraph 13.
Sorry, European Union.
Yes.
Can I just check which guidance you're referring to?
The guidelines for to the NIAP process.
Is it Annex 3 of Resolution Conference 1010?
Yes.
Okay, can you just read out your edits again?
This is an inclusion to paragraph 13a, and it could read contextual information, supporting information including corruption perception index, CPI, organized crime index, OCI, and published literature, CITES reports, and peer-reviewed literature can be used by traffic as contextual information in the identification of parties requiring attention in the CITES reports. Should I read it again?
I'll give the floor to the Secretary for some clarification.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, EU, for the proposal. We just want to make sure that we are all on the same page in terms of where this must be included. Currently, 13A reads that the COP will adopt criteria, and the criteria is listed under A. What we understand from the EU is you want to refer to traffic also being able to use contextual and supporting information. What is not clear is whether you want the Conference of the Parties to agree that traffic can use contextual and supporting information as highlighted as a separate recommendation, or whether you want to include the reference to contextual and supporting information in step 1, paragraph A of the NEAP guidelines. So if you could clarify, because at the moment, paragraph A and the step 1 speaks about CITES being the foundation for identifying parties is the CITES report. Do you want to add a sentence to that with the contextual and supporting information, or do you just want to add a recommendation to the current document to refer to that? If you could please clarify that, thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and sorry for the confusion. It should be included in step 1, para A. Thank you.
So just to clarify, so after the first sentence in step 1, paragraph A, you want to continue with a second sentence in step 1, paragraph A.
Yes, that is correct. Thank you.
Japan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, Japan opposed the EU's addition of about the contextual data. It's unclear what it is in this context, how it will be used, and so it means it reduced the transparency in this criteria. Then Japan believes it's we agree the overall direction of the original document, but it is problematic that the thresholds for each categorization criterion have not been established. So before this guidance is actually used in NIAP, it is necessary to present a proposal for the thresholds and to reach a decision through discussion by SC. Also, the relationship between criteria 1 and 2 is unclear, so clarification on this matter is also needed. In addition, there are issues regarding the treatment of transit countries. We would like to point out that Resolution Conf 9.7 asks the inspection of specimens in transit are being transshipped only to the extent possible under national legislation. The current proposal, which treats transiting on the same level as exporting and importing, is inconsistent with this resolution 9.7. So transiting must be treated differently, which must be clearly defined. Thank you, Madam Chair.
UAE, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. The UAE thanks the Secretariat, the Standing Committee, Traffic and Mike, CITES TAG for their extensive work in developing proposed criteria for Step 1A of the National Ivory Action Plan guideline. We recognize the importance of establishing a clear, consistent, and technically sound approach for identifying parties affected by illegal trade in ivory and other elephant specimens. Chair, the UAE supports the overall objective and structure of the proposed criteria in paragraph 13A, including the use of exclusion thresholds and the two-criterion framework. We further support the deletion of decisions 19.97 and 19.98, as these have been implemented and replaced by the present proposal. However, the UAE can support the adoption of the criteria only with technical refinements to ensure that the framework is applied in a fair, reliable, and operationally realistic manner. First, with respect to seizure-out data, some consignments are intercepted upstream before they ever reach the country later listed as transit or destination. In such cases, the party concerned has no opportunity to detect or act. We therefore propose that upstream seizures out records should not negatively influence the law enforcement ratio or NIAB categorization where the party had no operational involvement. Second, we recognize that reporting level remains uneven among parties. We therefore propose that structural variations in the frequency, completeness, and the quality of ITIS reporting be explicitly accounted for through bias adjustment and sensitivity analysis. Third, while we appreciate the TAG's advice against rigid thresholds, parties must still understand how categorization are derived. We therefore request that traffic publish a description of how variables A, B, and C are combined under Criterion 1, how Criteria 1 and 2 interact, and how categories A, B, and C are operationalized. Thank you, Chair.
Qatar, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Qatar thanks the Secretariat, Traffic, and the Standing Committee for the work presented in the document. Qatar believes that several elements under Recommendation 13A require further refinement before categorization system is adopted. First, on defining categories A, B, and C. As noted in paragraph 4 of the document, the boundaries and meaning of the three categories have never been formally defined. Without a clear definition, parties may be placed into categories that not reflect their real situation or their role in the trade chain. Therefore, Qatar requests that this definition be clarified before adoption. Second, under methodological criteria. Certain technical points in 13A requires additional explanation, including the basis for the exclusion formula, the criteria for validation seizures data, and the frequency of re-evaluation. These elements are essential to ensure fairness and consistent application across parties with different reporting and enforcement systems. Third, the transit countries. Regarding the transit countries, the proposed criteria do not differentiate between source, transit, and destination rules. Transit country may have high seizure out numbers due to active cooperation and enforcement, not due to involvement in illegal trade. So Qatar believes that distinction should be made explicitly in this criteria. Therefore, Qatar proposed that paragraph 13A to be replaced and read as follows. The Secretariat, Traffic, and relevant experts shall further refine and clarify the categorization criteria, especially the definition, methodological elements, and the proper reflection of transit rule, and submit revised proposal to the next meeting of the Standing Committee. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I still have a list of speakers, but I've heard from the floor, there are multiple parties requesting to edit the recommendations and also the resolution. So I think I'll just strike a working group so that everyone can work on it and come back. So I will clear the speaker list, and if you are interested to, if you want to be in this working group, please press your button now. Observers, can you just unpress first? I'm asking for parties first. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so I will read out, and technician, please clear. Thank you. UAE, Qatar, United States of America, Bahrain, India, European Union, China, United Kingdom, Singapore, Japan, Zimbabwe, Denmark, Benin, Germany, Lebanon, Saudi Arabia. Did I get everyone? If you press and I did not say your name, please flag your placard or something. Okay, no. Okay, I'm looking for a chair for this working group. Sorry, observers first. Yeah, sorry. Observers, please press your button. Okay, I have EIA USA, WWF, SSN, Traffic, David Shepherd Wildlife Foundation. Okay, I'm looking for a chair for this working group. If any of the parties willing to be a chair, can you please press your button? Foundation, Franz Baba, are you wanting to be in the working group?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Okay, no one has asked to be chair. Looking at the previous Agenda 76.5, Report of CITES, which Singapore is chairing. I'm asking if Singapore is willing to chair this since it is related. Singapore?
Yes, Madam Chair, Singapore will be willing to chair the working group.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so going through the terms of reference for the working group. So the working group will look at the recommendation 13A in agenda document 43. So I repeat again, the terms of reference will be looking at document 43, CITES categorization of parties, recommendation 13A. Okay, so now we move to Okay, so I would just like to get views on 13B, deleting decisions 19.97 and 19.98. I open the floor to parties. Okay, seeing no one asking for the floor, so the committee accepts the deletion of decisions 19.97 to 19.98. So we will come back to this again once the working group comes back. Thank you. I will now open the item agenda 44, ivory seizures and domestic ivory markets. The document is submitted by the Standing Committee. The Conference of Parties is invited to note that it was not feasible to undertake the analysis outlined in Decision 19.99 for reasons described in the document, and to delete Decisions 19.99 to 19.101. I open the floor to parties. United States of America, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. The United States acknowledges the conclusions of the Standing Committee based on the advice provided by the Mike Edis Technical Advisory Group and the Mike Edis Subgroup that an analysis of the relationship between ivory seizures and domestic ivory markets is not feasible due to varying interpretation of what constitutes a legal domestic ivory market and the ability and the inability to establish clear criteria to identify parties that would be subject to the analysis. However, we are disappointed that the Standing Committee was unable to recommend a path forward, noting that an alternative was suggested by a member of the subgroup as summarized in paragraph 21 of the present document. However, we recognize that alternative path would an alternative path of work would require external funding before it could be investigated forward. Therefore, the United States supports the deletion of decisions 19.99 to 19.101. We note that CoP20 Doc 76.1 includes our recommendations for the renewal of decisions 18.117 to 18.119 on closure of domestic ivory markets to ensure continued reporting at future meetings to help determine the need for future work. We support continued efforts by the parties to take measures to close domestic markets for commercial trade in raw and worked ivory and ensures that their domestic ivory markets are not contributing to poaching or illegal trade. Thank you.
India, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. India thanks the Standing Committee for the document CoP20 Doc 44. India strongly supports the closure of all domestic ivory markets that contribute to illegal trade. India reiterates its zero-tolerance policy towards ivory trade and recalls that domestic ivory trade has been prohibited in the country since 1986 under Wildlife Protection Act. India therefore supports the global closure of domestic ivory markets in lines with the provision of Resolution Conference 10.10, recognizing that such markets undermine global conservation and enforcement efforts. Thank you, Chair.
Burkina Faso, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Le Burkina Faso prend note du document COP20, DOC 44, et appuie la recommandation de supprimer les décisions 1999, 1901. L'analyse prévue n'étant pas réalisable. Le Burkina Faso pense que les données ETIS disponibles et accessibles permettent aux parties d'évaluer elles-mêmes les liens possibles entre les marchés intérieurs de l'ivoire et le commerce illégal. Il reste toutefois essentiel de maintenir le suivi au titre des décisions 1817 et 1819. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Nigeria, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Nigeria thanks the Secretariat for the work on Document 44. We support the proposed deletion of decisions 19.99 to 19.101. We know that although the analysis of domestic ivory market was constrained by limited information, it could have been more visible with more detailed data from parties. Nigeria also wishes to highlight that the new ETIS online data aggregates now provide important party-level seizure information, enabling more consistent and independent analysis going forward. Thank you, Chair.
Benin, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Pour être bref, nous soutenons la position des États-Unis et du Burkina Faso. Merci.
I now open the floor to non-parties and observer organizations. Niger, you have the floor.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Nous abondons dans le même sens que les États-Unis, le Burkina et le Bénin. Merci.
Okay, seeing no requests from the floor, my decision is that the committee agree. If you look at document 44, recommendations 24, document 44, recommendations 24. The committee agree that due to constraints identified by the CITES Technical Advisory Group, the CITES subgroup, and the Secretariat in relation to the analysis outlined in Decision 19.99, it was not feasible to undertake the analysis, and delete Decisions 19.99 to 19.101 on ivory seizures and domestic ivory markets. So I repeat again, document 44, recommendation 24. The committee note that due to constraints identified by the CITES Technical Advisory Group, the CITES subgroup, and the Secretariat in relation to the analysis outlined in Decision 19.99, it was not feasible to undertake the analysis, and delete Decisions 19.99 to 19.101 on ivory seizures and domestic ivory markets. If there are no objections, I will close this agenda item. Thank you. I now go to Agenda 35.2, Review of the National Ivory Action Plan process. This document is submitted by the Standing Committee. The Conference of the Parties is invited to adopt the draft amendments to the guidelines to the National Ivory Action Plan contained in Annex 1, adopt the draft decision on review of the NIAP process contained in Annex 2, and delete decisions 19.68 to 19.70. I will first open the floor to parties to see if there's any objections to the draft amendments to the guidelines to the National Ivory Action Plan decisions. UAE, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. The UAE thanks the Secretariat and the Standing Committee for the substantial and careful work undertaken to revise the NIAP guidelines. We support the adoption of the revised NIAP framework and draft decision 20.AA, and we view the reform of this process as timely and necessary. Chair, we seek targeted amendments to specific provisions in order to strengthen fairness, clarity, and procedural integrity. We do not support any unintended expansion of the NIAP mandate beyond Ivory. First, Chair, with regards to Pillar 4, the UAE supports outreach and demand reduction efforts. However, we propose a small but important change so that demand reduction activities remain focused on illegal ivory, with flexibility for other related wildlife products only where appropriate. Without this change, the wording risks unintentionally expanding the NIAP process beyond its established mandate. So that in Pillar 4, Step 2, 4, instead after for illegal, it should read an insertion, ivory, and comma, where appropriate, comma, other relevant, and continues with illegal wildlife products. Should I repeat? Yes. So in Pillar 4, Step 2.4, outreach, public awareness and education, and targeted demanded reduction for illegal, insertion starts, ivory, and, comma, where appropriate, comma, other relevant, and continues with illegal wildlife products. Second, regarding Secretariat triggered NIAP updates, under Step 3E, the UAE accepts the need for responsiveness to emerging trends. However, we propose two safeguards: that updates be initiated in consultation with the parties concerned, and that the 60-day time frame be flexible where national procedures or capacity require more time. In Step 3E, after the first word F, insertion starts, comma, in consultation with the party concerned, comma, and continues. And before the end of, an addition before the end of the paragraph, the party shall prepare and submit the updated NEAP within 60 days, comma, insertion, or within a longer period where duly justified in light of national procedures and capacities. Third, on step 4D, we fully support strengthening evaluations.
UAE, can you just hold first? Can you just repeat that again? The
Yes.
edit for step 3E.
Yes. Add toward the end or within a longer period where duly justified in light of national procedures and capacities.
Yes, okay.
On step 4D, we fully support strengthening evaluations. We request a simple procedural safeguard that parties be informed of adverse findings and giving the opportunity to clarify missing or misunderstood information before evaluations are finalized. So we add at the end of step 4D, insertion starts, and will communicate such findings to the party concerned in a timely manner, providing an opportunity to submit additional information or clarification before finalizing its evaluation. Should I repeat? And will communicate such findings to the party concerned in a timely manner, comma, providing an opportunity to submit additional information or clarification before finalizing its evaluation. Thank you, Chair.
India, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. India supports a draft amendment to Annex 30 of Resolution Conference 10.10 on trade of elephant specimens, that is guidelines to the National Ivory Action Plan contained in Annex 1 to the present document, and adopt the draft decision on the review of a NEAP process in Annex 2 of the present document, and delete decisions 19.68 to 19.70. Thank you, Chair.
Singapore, you have the floor.
Madam Chair, Singapore supports UAE's proposed amendment. We understand that the proposed amendment encourages consultation and communications amongst concerned parties, and that will strengthen the NEAP process. In addition, we feel that the flexibility provided for information to be submitted, allows for flexibility, so we are in support of the proposed amendments. Thank you, Madam Chair.
United States of America, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The United States supports the amendments, the draft amendments to Annex 3 of Resolution 1010. However, the United States would like to propose replacing shall with should in paragraph E of step 3 to better reflect the non-binding nature of the Standing Committee's recommendation and align with the approach taken in paragraph B. The United States also supports the inclusion of the text in paragraph 4, paragraph D, that would incorporate the use of indicators and milestones to assess NIAP achievements and their impact. However, we note that the indicators to assess NIAP achievements have yet to be developed and would need to be carefully reviewed and vetted by the Standing Committee to ensure that they improve the ability of the Secretariat and the Standing Committee to evaluate conditions and assess progress towards completing the NIAP. The United States also supports the draft decisions of the review of NIAP process as found in Annex 2 of the current document, which would direct the Standing Committee to evaluate the long-term considerations found in the NIAP review and make recommendations to COP21 as appropriate. These specific conditions that we are interested in is options to ensure that the NIAP remains up to date, ways to facilitate timely reporting by parties under the NIAP process, and assessing and agreeing upon the most appropriate indicators and targets for each NIAP. We also support the recommendation to delete decisions 19.68 and 19.68 to 19.70. Thank you.
Qatar, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Qatar thanks the Standing Committee and Secretariat for the comprehensive review presented in document 35.2. Also, we support the proposed amendment of UAE. Qatar has taken concrete steps to strengthen its own NIAP implementation, including establishing a dedicated intra-agency team and improving coordination among enforcement authorities. This cooperation has already resulted in complete data gaps, targeted inspection, and successful participation and Operation Thunder 2025. Qatar views the NIAP process as an opportunity to reinforce national capacity and contribute to the global efforts against illegal wildlife trade. Thank you, Chair.
Bahrain, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Bahrain support the amendments done by United Arab Emirates. Thank you, Chair.
Vietnam, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Vietnam, as a Category A NIAP party, generally support the recommendation to adopt Annex 1 and Annex 2 of the present document. However, Vietnam share the same concern with UAE regarding the time frame for updating NIAP. We therefore does not support the specific proposed text in Annex 1 to the present document. Specifically at step 3E, which requires that the party shall prepare and submit an updated NIAP within 60 days following the meeting of the standing committees. The reason for these objections is that the proposed 60-day timeframe might be too short for member states to complete the necessary sectoral consultations, revision and endorsement of an updated national plan. Considering that the period defined under Step 2, development of NIAP, is 120 days, Vietnam proposed that the time frame for updating a NIAP should likewise be 120 days. A shorter deadline may place pressures on parties and would likely result in an insufficiently consulted revision of the National Action Plan. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Kuwait, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. We'll align our position with the UAE. Thank you.
Kazakhstan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kazakhstan is supporting UAE on their recommendations. Thank you.
Togo, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Nous avons suivi toutes les interventions, mais le Togo soutient les recommandations du texte original. Je vous remercie.
I now open the floor to non-parties and observer organizations. European Union, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm speaking on behalf of the EU and its member states. We support the recommendations and the draft decision as proposed by the Standing Committee in the document. Thank you.
Thailand, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Thailand align ourselves with the recommendation by the UAE. Thank you.
Kenya, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We'll also wish to align with the EU and Togo.
Indonesia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Indonesia support the proposal of UAE. Thank you.
Liberia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Liberia would like to support the position of the EU, Togo, and Kenya. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, I'm closing the list for parties. EIA UK.
Thank you, Chair. We're speaking on behalf of the EIA and 11 other organisations. We welcome the proposed amendments to the NIAP guidelines contained in Annex 1, as well as the draft decision contained in Annex 2. Once implemented, these measures will further strengthen the NIAP process, providing a more robust framework to tackle the illegal ivory trade. However, we remain concerned about the lengthy time frame for considering additional amendments proposed in the review, now deferred until COP21. It is important that we do not lose momentum on the NIAP review. We encourage the Secretariat to report back to SC 82 on progress made to consider the other aspects of the review's findings, or at minimum, to provide verbal intersessional updates. We also encourage relevant government and non-government stakeholders to offer their support in this respect. Thank you, Chair.
United States of America, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The United States does not support the proposed edits made by the UAE.
Okay, I did see some support for edits and no support for edits. So I'll just go through the edits one by one and see if we can come to a compromise. So for Annex 1, if you look at step 2A, 4.
Paragraph 2, little 4.
Step 2, right? Step 2A, paragraph 2, 4. I repeat again. Annex 1, step 2A, paragraph 2, 4. There was edit on outreach, public awareness, education, and targeted demand reduction for illegal ivory, and where appropriate, other relevant illegal wildlife products. I repeat again, outreach, public awareness, education, and targeted demand reduction for illegal ivory, and where appropriate, other relevant illegal wildlife products. I want to see some views from the floor if this is acceptable, because this is on trade in elephant specimens, so it's a bit more specific that it's on illegal ivory, but also including other relevant illegal wildlife products. I want to see if there's any strong objection to this edit. If you have, please press your button. Okay, I see no request from the floor, so I think this is okay, so we will accept this edit. The next one is step 3E. Step 3E. So there was 2 edits. I'll read out, was it 2? No, 3. There's 3 edits. Okay, but I think I'll just, because it's the third. Okay, so there's 3 edits. I'll go through the first 2 edits first. So step 3E, if in consultation with the party concerned, this is the new text, new or emerging elephant poaching or ivory trafficking trends or related matters so require, the Secretariat should recommend to the Standing Committee. I repeat again, step 3E, if in consultation with the party concerned, new or emerging elephant poaching or ivory trafficking trends or related matters so require, the Secretariat should recommend to the Standing Committee. I'm looking for the floor if there's objections to these two edits. If you have any objection, please press the button for these two edits. The addition of in consultation with the party concerned and changing shall to should. Okay, I see no requests from the floor, so these two edits is accepted. Then there's another edit in the same paragraph, step 3E. I will start from the last sentence. So I repeat again, step 3E. If agreed by the Standing Committee, the party shall prepare should prepare and submit an updated NIAP to the Secretariat within 60 days or within a longer period where duly justified in light of national procedures and capacities. I repeat again, so there's two edits to this sentence. Step 3E. If agreed by the Standing Committee, the party should prepare and submit an updated NIAP to the Secretariat within 60 days or within a longer period where duly justified in light of national procedures and capacities following the meeting of the Standing Committee. I'm looking to the floor for, okay, European Union, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. With regard to the other option than 60 days, the undefined amount of time, I think we would need to be some kind of limit or definition about how long this period could be. Unsure if we caught it earlier, but maybe I believe Vietnam mentioned 120 days. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, European Union. Yes, Vietnam did suggest 120 days. So I'm looking to the floor for either the edit for a longer period where duly justified or 120 days. Can I just have a suggestion first before I open the floor? Within 60 days or within a longer period of a maximum of 120 days. So there's a cap on it. Yeah. So I'll repeat again. So within 60 days or within a longer period of a maximum of 120 days, where duly justified in light of national procedures and capacities. I'm looking to the floor for strong objections. Congo, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame. Nous pensons qu'il faut encadrer la durée. C'est pour cela que nous sommes pour les 120 jours. Merci.
Okay, I see consensus in supporting the addition of a maximum of 120 days. So I'll come back to repeat this again when we go through all the decisions. So the next edit, it's step 4D. Step 4D. The Secretariat shall determine, will determine. Paragraph D, step 4, the Secretariat will determine where insufficient information was available to conduct an evaluation of process or actions against set milestones, objectives, and indicators to assess both the achievement and impact of the actions taken, and will communicate such findings to the party concerned in a timely manner and providing an opportunity to submit additional information or clarification before finalizing its evaluation. I'll just repeat again. So for step 4, para D, at the end, there'll be addition of a sentence, and will communicate such findings to the party concerned in a timely manner, providing an opportunity to submit additional information or clarification before finalizing its evaluation. So I'm looking to the floor for this edit, if there's any strong objections to this new edit in in step 4D, United States of America.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We could accept that edit with an actual timeline for the response from the parties, so possibly 30 days for the response to be provided by the parties before the Secretariat finalizes its evaluation, so it's not an ongoing matter.
European Union, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. The EU would like to align with the intervention just made by the United States. We would also like to see a time frame defined for this amendment. Thank you.
Okay, so I would suggest this, and then I will pass the floor to Secretariat for clarification. So it will read, and will communicate such findings to the party concerned in a timely manner, providing opportunity to submit additional information or clarification within 15 days before finalizing its evaluation. So to submit additional information or clarification within 15 days before finalizing its evaluation. I give the floor to Secretariat to explain the 15 days.
Thank you, Chair. Just to clarify that it's not because we are not interested in giving ample time to the parties to provide additional information and clarifications. It's just the timeline from the progress report being submitted 90 days in advance of the Standing Committee, as you will see in step 4, paragraph A. And to the Standing Committee, there isn't enough time to allow for a 30-day review of the findings of the Secretariat, because we need time to review the progress reports, and then the document deadline is 60 days before the meeting, so there isn't another 30 days to give to the party concerned. So that's the reason why we suggest a shorter time frame for this. Thank you.
Okay, so I will. So for document 35.2, recommendation 21A, the committee agree on the draft amendments to Annex 3 to Resolution Conference 1010 contained in Annex 1 with the edits. I will go through the edits again just to be clear. So for step 2A, para 2(4), outreach, public awareness and education, and targeted demand reduction for illegal ivory, and where appropriate, other relevant illegal wildlife products. Step 3E, if in consultation with the party concerned, new or emerging elephant poaching or ivory trafficking trends or related matters so require, the Secretariat should recommend to the Standing Committee, and the sentence follows. The same paragraph, if agreed by the Standing Committee, the party should prepare and submit an updated NIAP to the Secretariat within 60 days or within a longer period of maximum 120 days, where duly justified in light of national procedures and capacities. And finally, step 4D, addition of a last sentence, and will communicate such findings to the party concerned in a timely manner, providing opportunity to submit additional information or clarification within 15 days before finalizing its evaluation. Okay. Next, recommendation 21B, to adopt the draft decision in Annex 2. I did hear support for adoption, for accepting Annex 2. So I will, okay, I do not see any requests from the floor, so the committee agrees to the draft decision on review of NIAP process in Annex 2 of the present document. And lastly, delete decisions 19.68 to 19.70. Okay, thank you very much. I close this agenda item. Thank you. The next agenda item is 49, legal acquisition findings. The document has been submitted by the Secretariat at the request of the Standing Committee. The Conference of the Parties is invited to adopt the draft decisions in Annex 1, adopt the amendments to Annex 1 and 3 to Resolution Conference 18.7 contained in Annex 2, consider the revised draft guidance on the chain of custody required for demonstrating the legal acquisition of the parental breeding stock contained in Annex 3, and delete decisions 19.128 to 19.131. Before I open the floor, I would like to draw the attention of the committee to draft decision 20EE that directs the Standing Committee to further consider the draft guidance on the chain of custody during the next intersessional period. So please keep this in mind when you make your interventions. I open the floor to parties. Thank you. Brazil, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Brazil makes this intervention with the support of the following countries: Argentina, Belize, Colombia, Costa Rica, Ecuador, Guatemala, Honduras, Panama, and Uruguay. As a mega-diverse country, Brazil is a primary target for wild captures intended for international trafficking. A large portion of animals in captivity around the world are, if not themselves the result of trafficking, the offspring of their trafficked ancestors. As we know, founder stocks are animals taken from the wild in their countries of origin that later serve as the source for the breeding stock used in captive breeding programs. Without ensuring the legal acquisition of founder stocks in the countries of origin, the illegal capture of animals will continue. Decisive international action is essential to ensure fairness toward the countries most affected by illegal wildlife trade and to strengthen collective responsibility under the Convention. Brazil suggests that the draft guidance be incorporated as an amendment to Resolution CONF 18.7, Rev COP19, on legal acquisition findings, to ensure more consistent implementation by parties, which cannot be guaranteed through a standalone posting on the CITES website. After extensive exchange during SC 78, Brazil submitted comments and feedback in response to notification number 2025/041, which invited parties and observers to provide inputs on the draft guidance. However, many of Brazil's comments were not taken into account in the revised draft guidance contained in Annex 3. The information document we submitted reflects Brazil's position on this matter, and Brazil cannot accept the current version proposed by the Secretariat. Since we believe Committee 2 is not the place to negotiate the text included in an annex, we propose the creation of a drafting group to address the points raised by Brazil, mainly concentrated in the need for including the term founder stock in the document. Thank you.
China, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. China knows that this document is very important as it is directly related to trade regulation and exemption. China therefore suggests that the Standing Committee establish an intersessional working group with the mandate to discuss and propose a definition of founder stock. Before a clear definition is agreed by the Standing Committee, we wish to delete all relevant sentences mentioning founder stock in the Annex 3 draft guidance. China notes paragraphs 35 to 33 in Annex 3 to this document. They extend the regulation of a parental or breeding stock acquired before the species were listed on CITES or before the party concerned joined the Convention. Requiring complete documentation for the stock obtained decades ago is neither workable nor fair in practice. It goes beyond the mandate of CITES and is practically impossible. If we look at it as an analog one to the pre-convention specimen, China would like to offer a solution by adding paragraphs 38 to 40 in this draft guidance, subtitled with historically inherited stock. It reads, paragraph 38, if it is impossible to provide complete original documents due to legitimate historical reason, and the management authority should accept declarations based on long-term, continuous, and reliable evidence. Paragraph 39, such evidence may include, but is not limited to, long-term stable inventory records of the enterprise, continuous financial records, legal obtained business license archives, long-term regulatory records from the government departments, or established facts widely recognized within the country's industry. And paragraph 40, the management authority should conduct a comprehensive evaluation of these alternative pieces of evidence in conjunction with the risk assessment factors listed in paragraph 31 of this guidance to confirm their long-term lawful
China,
opposition.
can I request you to read slowly for the 3 additional paragraphs? Can you please read again? Thank you.
Okay, then I will repeat. Paragraph 38. If it is impossible to provide complete original documents due to legitimate historical reasons, the management authorities should accept declarations based on long-term, continuous, and reliable evidence. And paragraph 39, such evidence may include, but is not limited to, long-term stable inventory records of the enterprise, continuous financial records, legally obtained business license archives, long-term regulatory records from government departments, all established facts widely recognized within the country's industry. And then paragraph 40. The management authorities should conduct a comprehensive evaluation of these alternative pieces of evidence in conjunction with the risk assessment factors listed in paragraph 31 of this guidance to confirm their long-term lawful possession and use history. Am I understood, Chair?
Yes, is your intervention finished?
I will continue. Just give me a little bit more time. China would also like to amend paragraph 31 by adding subparagraph letter K, the historical development, scale, and the level of sophistication of the domestic regulatory system for the ex situ production of this species in the country. Thank you very much for your patience, Madam Chair.
New Zealand, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Legal acquisition findings are one of the key pillars for trade in CITES listed species. Too often, as Brazil's described, our endemic species have been smuggled out of our country and then appear as purportedly captive-bred specimens in the international pet trade. We thank the Secretariat for developing this paper. We particularly support the guidance on following the chain of custody back to when the original founding stock was legally removed from the wild. This will be helpful in considering legal acquisition in the context of registration of captive breeding facilities, captive bred animals, and propagated plants. The aim in all cases is to establish a traceability of the specimens in question in order to ensure that they have not been removed from the wild in violation of applicable national laws. To make the language unambiguous, we suggest that these original founders should be, as a minimum, referred to in the guidance in Annex 3 as original parental breeding stock, but our preference would be to refer to them as the generation taken from the wild as the original founding stock. We further recommend that the term original founding stock, or the generation taken from the wild as the original founding stock, is used consistently in future revisions of resolutions 9.19 Rev CoP 15, resolution 10.16 Rev CoP 19, resolution 11.11 Rev CoP 18, and resolution 12.10 Rev CoP 15, to refer to those animals or plants taken from the wild and later used for captive breeding or artificial propagation. We also note that under some jurisdictions, specimens of some species may be legally taken from the wild but not legally exported. Therefore, when following the chain of custody back to the permits allowing specimens to be taken from the wild, Determining that such specimens were legally exported should be an important step in following the chain of custody. We support all 5 draft decisions in Document 49. We can, however, see there's a lot of interest in this topic, and we look forward to further intersessional consideration of this by the Standing Committee. Thank you, Chair.
Gabon, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Le Gabon remercie le secrétariat pour le document COP20, DOC 49, et exprime son soutien aux recommandations soumises à l'examen de la conférence des parties. Le Gabon accorde une grande importance à la question des avis d'acquisition légale, en particulier pour les espèces d'arbres et la faune dont le commerce repose sur des filières complexes. Nous saluons la mise en place de la base CITES LEX ainsi que la clarification des annexes de la résolution CONF 18.7. Le Gabon réaffirme son engagement à mettre en œuvre la résolution CONF 18.7, REV.COP19 et à collaborer étroitement avec les parties et le secrétariat afin de renforcer la traçabilité, la conformité et le commerce légal des espèces inscrites aux annexes. Je vous remercie.
Mexico, you have the floor.
Gracias, señora presidenta. México apoya lo expresado por Brasil y apoya la creación de un grupo de redacción y en su caso participaría en el mismo. Muchas gracias, presidenta.
Okay, I'm going to close the speaker list. I have Canada, Ecuador, European Union, United Kingdom, Fiji, Australia, Senegal, United States of America. Canada, you can have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. With respect to the recommendations in paragraph 24, Canada would support the adoption of the draft decisions in response to recommendation A. And we can agree with the amendments to resolution 18.7 as recommended in recommendation B. With regard to the draft guidance on chain of custody, we note the revised draft guidance, and we equally note and welcome draft decision 20.EE, which requests the Standing Committee to further consider the guidance. Canada appreciates this decision, as in our view, it is clear that we do not have a common understanding of the distinction between the obligation to ensure each specimen in trade was acquired in accordance with the laws of our country and the willingness to support range states' goals for the conservation of species found within their borders. Canada is very interested in continuing a further discussion on what we, as parties, can and should do to support countries in achieving their conservation goals. That is the ultimate goal of this convention. But we do not want to conflate this with the obligations under the convention that are associated with trade in specimens and national laws, in other words, legal acquisition findings. So we do look forward as well to the future discussion of Document 73 as presented by Brazil. Like China, we agree that we do not have an agreed definition of founder stock. We note the Secretariat, inferring from Resolution 17.7, defined it as specimens removed from the wild to form the basis of an operation. However, this is an inference. Canada's understanding of founder stock in the context of Resolution 18.7, or legal acquisition, is the stock that founded an operation in Canada. In other words, confirming that the specimens used to start the operation were obtained in Canada in compliance with our national legislation. So for this reason, we very much support the draft decisions, including Decision 20EE, as we think there is considerable discussion to be had. We would welcome an opportunity to have a discussion on a common definition of founder stock and hear the proposals from New Zealand. We do not think a drafting group is needed at this time because we do anticipate the further discussion of this guidance through the Standing Committee. And finally, we agree with the deletion of Decision 19.128 and 19.131. Thank you, Chair.
Ecuador, you have the floor.
Gracias, señora presidenta. Ecuador respalda la propuesta de Brasil referente al proyecto de orientaciones que se ha presentado en el documento 49. Consideramos que su implementación es esencial para remediar una significativa laguna jurídica que afecta a la integridad de la Convención, como se expone en el documento informativo 16 presentado por Ecuador respecto al comercio ilegal de iguanas endémicas de Galápagos. El tráfico ilícito de vida silvestre se ve favorecido cuando ejemplares capturados en su entorno natural o sus descendientes son identificados erróneamente como criados en cautiverio, mediante la emisión inadecuada de permisos CITES, especialmente tratándose de especies endémicas estrictamente protegidas a nivel nacional. El caso de las iguanas Galápagos demuestra que la expedición de permisos CITES para animales supuestamente criados en cautividad, sin la verificación adecuada del origen legal del stock fundador, permite la persistencia del comercio ilegal. La adopción de las recomendaciones contenidas en el documento informativo 44 presentado por Brasil y particularmente una posible incorporación como enmienda vinculante a la resolución COP 18.7 resulta indispensable para que las partes apliquen la debida diligencia. Garantizar la legalidad del stock fundador es un requisito fundamental para desalentar la captura ilegal en los países de origen de especies que posteriormente son blanqueadas bajo la figura de cría en cautiverio. Gracias.
European Union, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. The European Union and its member states express their support to the recommendations under letters A, B, and D of document 49. Regarding the recommendation under letter C, we would like to commend the Secretariat for the improvements to the draft guidelines in Annex 3 of the document after Standing Committee 78, and thank the parties and observers that have submitted inputs and comments. However, we believe that the draft guidelines require further refinements and changes in the parts where the term founder stock is used. Because while Resolution 10.15 and 11.11 provide a definition of breeding stock and cultivated parental stock, the term founder stock is not defined everywhere. For this reason, we believe that, given the serious implications for the implementation of Article 7, paragraphs 4 and 5 of the Convention, the concept of founder stock should be analyzed and discussed by parties, and its proper definition should be adopted through an amendment to the relevant resolution, if this concept will be deemed to be necessary. Therefore, we propose the adoption of the new decision that will task the Standing Committee to establish an intersessional working group that will focus on the term founder stock, its legal base in the Convention, its definition, and its implications. We also suggest to delete from the guidelines in Annex 3 of Document 49 every reference to the founder stock. We are aware that the review of CITES provisions related to trading specimens of animal and plants not of wild source is ongoing, according to decisions 19.179 and 19.180, and that the results of such review will be presented to the COP under document 67.1, together with the suggestion to continue working on this review. Since the topics under Doc 49 and 67.1 are related, we are confident that the Standing Committee will be able to coordinate the two working groups, if had established, and to achieve positive results. Finally, we suggest an amendment to paragraph 37, subparagraph A of the guidelines to properly recall the provisions on pre-convention specimens. The draft decision and the amendments to the guidelines in Annex 3 are in information document number 69. Thanks.
United Kingdom, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. The UK supports the draft decisions contained in Annex 1
and the amendments to Resolution Conf 18.7 contained in Annex 2, and note that the Secretariat has made the link between the document 88.1 on sharks and rays, where amendments to the rapid guide for the making of legal acquisition findings contained in Annex 3 to the resolution are also proposed, and agree that the amendments captured in the present document are preferred. With regards to the draft guidance on the chain of custody required for demonstrating legal acquisition of parental/breeding stock contained in Annex 3, we support the views of Canada. We understand the sentiment to determine legal acquisition across the full history of a specimen or back to founder stock, but the UK wish to highlight that this guidance should be able to be applied to Appendix 1 and 2 species of fauna and flora. We would also like to raise a practical concern with its application to flora species specifically. For example, under Annotation 4, a number of parts and derivative types are exempt from CITES provisions, such as orchid seeds and flora specimens traded in vitro, and therefore determining chain of custody back to founder stock may be challenging. Similar challenges exist for many species which have been bred in captivity or artificially propagated for many generations over many decades, and so legal acquisition findings across the full chain of custody must remain a best endeavours activity where possible to support the request of Brazil, New Zealand and others. The UK believes significant further work to amend this draft guidance is required to ensure it is clear and practicable, and look forward to continued intersessional work on this guidance. Thank you.
Fiji, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Fiji acknowledges the comprehensive work presented in this document and expresses strong support for strengthening legal acquisition findings as a core requirement for ensuring that international trade in CITES-listed species is legal, traceable, and compliant with the national legislation. As a small island developing state with high level of biodiversity endemism, Fiji places a importance on robust life processes. Our country is home to species found nowhere else in the world, including the Fiji crested iguana, a critically endangered species that has faced threats from illegal collection and trafficking. In the past, we have witnessed cases of attempted smuggling and illicit removal of iguanas from our islands, demonstrating the real and pressing need for strengthened and legal verification of mechanisms across the supply chain. Chair, we would like to support the statements made by New Zealand and Brazil.
Australia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Australia supports the recommendations in the document and the comments by New Zealand regarding the use of language founder stock. We also stand with Brazil and the parties they spoke with, and with Fiji, as a country with many endemic species that are available in international trade despite no legal exports occurring. We oppose the proposal of China to amend the guidance to allow for reduced documentary evidence for historically acquired specimens. Due to the issues faced by Australia and the Oceania region with endemic species turning up in international trade, we see the term founder stock as important, and any such definitions should refer to the original founder specimens from which captive bred specimens have been derived. We could, in good faith, noting the importance of this matter to Australia and Oceania, accommodate the new decision proposed by the EU in order to give this matter the focus it requires. However, we cannot at this stage support the changes to the draft guidance on the chain of custody, specifically on the references to and associated guidance on founder stock. Thank you.
United States of America, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The United States supports the adoption of the draft decisions contained in Annex 1 of the document with an additional draft decision. Would you like me to read it out now? It's directed to parties to encourage them to use the guidance provided in Resolution 4.22, Proof of Foreign Law. I can give you the text. Draft Decision 20XX, parties are encouraged to use the guidance provided in Resolution Conf 4.22 on proof of foreign law to inform parties of the existence, adoption, or amendment of stricter domestic measures regarding the management of CITES-listed species native to their jurisdiction, and particularly endemic species, to support other parties in making required legal acquisition findings, including LAFs for specimens being presented for re-export and parental breeding stock for specimens bred in captivity or artificially propagated. I can read it again if you'd like. Okay. Draft Decision 20XX, parties are encouraged to use the guidance provided in Resolution COP 4.22 on proof of foreign law to inform parties of the existence, adoption, or amendment of stricter domestic measures regarding the management of CITES-listed species native to their jurisdiction, and particularly endemic species, to support other parties in making required legal acquisition findings, including LAFs for specimens being presented for re-export and parental breeding stock for specimens bred in captivity or artificially propagated. And I have a small edit to Draft Decision 20DD. It is found after the clause where appropriate, make recommendations for, we'd like to insert, improving the non-binding guidance on. And then the rest of the sentence, the verification of legal acquisition by parties. We also could be supportive of the amendment made by Brazil and supported by New Zealand, Fiji, Ecuador. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I now open the floor for non-parties and observer organizations. FAO, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. As showcased yesterday at the side event, Making LAFs Requirements and Best Practices, FAO will continue strengthening the partnership with the Secretariat to enhance CITES LACs. This partnership supports FAO members that are parties to CITES, as well as non-parties, in enhancing their knowledge on the legal aspects of the Convention and its regime, facilitating access to policy and legal information relevant to CITES, and providing digital solutions to help parties make LAFs. FAO takes this opportunity to highlight The maintenance and sustainability of CITES LECs relies on limited technical and financial resources. FAO is very grateful to the Secretariat and the financial support from Switzerland and the EU in enabling phase 1 of CITES LECs, which allowed us to design the website, create the country profiles, make relevant materials in all 6 UN working languages, and update website based on input received from the parties. The continuation of this project under a phase 2 could entail adding new section to display legal definitions of CITES terms and other examples of provisions that implement CITES identified in national legislation, providing a function that allows users to compare different information available on the website, enhance interoperability with other existing legal database, and potential use of artificial intelligence to generate more elaborate results from advanced search. FAO looks forward to continuing strengthening the partnership with the Secretariat and supporting parties in making LAF and stands ready to contribute to future awareness raising and capacity development activities on this topic. Since many parties expressed the intention of creating a working group, if that's the way forward, FAO has interest to be part of it. Thank you, Chair.
National Animal Interest Alliance, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me the floor. I am also speaking on behalf of a number of organizations that represent pet keepers, breeders, and industry, as well as tens of thousands of individuals worldwide whose livelihoods rely on sustainable use of wildlife and fisheries resources. The suggestion that LAF findings require submission of CITES permits for the original founder stock creates an impossibility for many species. In many cases, the original founder stock were exported prior to the species listing on the appendices, and thus, no such permits exist. We also strongly oppose denial of LAFs for captive bred specimens produced outside the range state based solely on lack of records of export of original founder stock. Documentation of captive bred specimens is often not passed from importers to the final destination of the founder stock, and even more rarely is passed down through generations of captive breeding due to wide dispersal of bred specimens and the fact that such documents often contain information considered to be trade secrets. It is also fundamentally unfair and a violation of procedural norms to add requirements to maintain detailed documentation that does not exist in some cases 50 years or more after the fact. Furthermore, the reality is that most parties have poor record keeping of what has and has not been exported because they themselves have not considered such detailed record keeping necessary. For example, the United States, a country with a sophisticated LEMIS database and a fondness of record keeping, only keeps import and export records for 5 years, and for many species, only keeps records at higher taxonomic levels. Even the CITES trade database, one of the better deposits of records, is known to often harbor significant inaccuracies. Thus, denial of LAFs must be based on affirmative, particularized evidence of illegality, not simply absence of records. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So what I have been hearing is that generally for the guidance, there were a lot of comments. I think definitely everybody agreed that there still needs to be a lot of work to be done for the guidance. So I'm proposing for recommendation 24A in document 49 that we adopt the draft decisions in Annex 1 because in 20EE it already said that the standing committee will continue to work and consider the draft guidance. So there will be work continuing on that. So I'm proposing that we agree to the draft decisions with amendments by the US in 20DD on the non-binding guidance, on the verification of legal acquisition findings, and it will include the consideration of the draft guidance in paragraph C in Annex 3. So I'll repeat again. So for recommendation A, we will agree the draft decisions on the amendments, with the amendments by the US on legal acquisition findings. So the amendment by the US is in Annex 120DD, improving the non-binding guidance on the verification of legal acquisition. And also, we will include the consideration of the draft guidance to the present document. So that means we'll continue to work on the guidance in 24A. And then are there any strong objections? So for United States of America, I'll come back to your new draft decision later on, the 20XX. Yeah, United States of America, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you so much, Madam Chair. I did hear there was a lot of interest on the floor for a drafting group or a working group to take place at COP20 to try to work out some of these issues. I wanted to see if that was still under consideration.
I was looking at doing the work intersessionally because there were really a lot of comments, a lot of edits, and I'm not sure if the working group can actually come to agreement at this COP. So I would prefer that we work on it intersessionally. So I would like to seek agreement on the recommendation 24B to European Union, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. We would like to ask a clarification for the way forward you are suggesting. Thank you.
Okay, so for the guidance in Annex 3, my way forward is for the Standing Committee to continue working on it as reflected in Annex 120EE. So the Standing Committee will continue to further consider the draft guidance. So that's my way forward for that. So which is why I said for 24A, the draft decisions will include the consideration of the draft guidance, so there will be continuing work on that. I hope I'm clear on that. Okay, then for 24B, the committee to consider to agree on the amendments to Annex 1 and 3 to Resolution Conference 18.7 contained in Annex 2. I'm looking for any objections to this. Then for 24D, I think I heard support for deleting decisions 19.128 to 19.131. So for the EU and US draft decisions, I'm suggesting that this be taken up intersessionally because in 20EE, the Standing Committee, as I said, will also continue work on this. So I'm looking at agreement for this, US and EU. If you have strong objections for my way forward, please press the button now. My decision is that for the draft decisions suggested by EU and US, could you please work on this intersessionally because it is provided in the draft decisions in Annex 1, so work can continue. European Union, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. We would like the spirit of compromise to suggest an amended version of the draft decision that we had presented in InfoDoc number 69. So I would like to read it with your indulgence, just the time to collect it back. questa. Okay. No, 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 non è questa. No, no. Just one.
European Union, could you just clarify what you were requesting for again? So I'm looking at the draft decision.
Yes, of course. We have, for a spirit of compromise, we have simplified our draft decision, which is contained in InfoDoc number 69. It could be an interesting way forward if you would like to submit to parties for their evaluation. My internet wasn't functioning, so I just was able to upload now. So I would like to read it. It would be Decision 20FF. The Standing Committee shall establish an international working group on parental breeding found stock. The working group shall be composed of parties from as many of the 6 CITES regions as possible. The working group shall consider Resolution Conf 9.19 on registration of nurseries that artificially propagate specimens of Appendix 1 plant species for export purposes. Resolution 11.11 on regulation on trade in plants. Resolution 10.16 on specimen of animal species bred in captivity. Resolution 12.10, registration of operation that breed Appendix 1 animal species in captivity for commercial purposes. Resolution Conf 18.7 on legal acquisition findings. To ensure a common and coherent understanding for operationalizing Article 7, paragraph 4 and 5, with particular focus on founder, parental, and breeding stock used in captive breeding and artificial propagation operations. The working group shall work in cooperation with the intersectional working group established to review the CITES provisions related to trading specimens of animal and plants not of wild source. The working group shall submit a report and any recommendations for amendments to relevant resolution, if necessary, to the 82nd meeting of the Standing Committee, which shall report with its recommendations at the 21st meeting of the Conference of the Parties. If needed, I can read it again. Thank you.
Thank you, European Union, for reading out the draft decision. United States of America, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We could support the draft decisions as proposed by the European Union. However, I think it could be included in 20EE. Maybe we can insert some language about and the discussions that took place at COP20 on Doc 49. So it can be inclusive of all the discussions that have happened. And in terms of our draft decisions, that would also fall under 20EE if we amend it to include the discussions on the floor. We would just like to note that in our draft decisions, it's nothing new. It's just recalling the guidance, the existing guidance that the parties have under Resolution Conf 4.22 on proof of foreign law and bringing it to the top of the list so that they can utilize it. So I think that's okay.
Yeah, thank you, United States of America. Yeah, that was what I was thinking, because I think for the EU's draft decision is a lot of the terms of reference for the working group. So I think we can work out some language where, the standing committee can form an intersessional working group and then consider the draft guidance and any amendments to existing resolutions and also what was discussed at COP. So maybe we can think of a language secretariat and then we can post it as an in-session doc. Okay, so I'm just going to read out the suggested text and just let me know if you are not agreeable. So under 20EE, after guidance on the chain of custody required for demonstrating the legal acquisition of the parental breeding stock, there'll be insertion of taking into consideration the discussions on this matter at COP20, propose amendments or additional guidance as appropriate, and then it follows. So I'll repeat again, 20EE, after parental breeding stock, insertion of new text, taking into consideration the discussions on this matter at COP20, propose amendments or additional guidance as appropriate, and the remaining sentence follows. Are there any strong objections to this? Because then at least we cover all the discussions here and standing committee can work on this intersessionally. I'm looking for any objections to my suggestion. European Union, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. We heard support from the United States for our proposed draft decision. We agree we could put under as a continuation of 20EE. And regarding the suggested way forward that you just proposed, we believe it's too generic, maybe. So we would like to suggest the adoption of the draft decision that we have read before. Thank you.
Canada, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Canada, if it's the will of the room, Canada can accept your approach. But in truth, we would prefer to continue to consider the EU's amended decision. Our understanding of the EU amended decision is that ultimately they are just asking the Standing Committee to have a working group that looks at a number of relevant resolutions in the context of Article 7, paragraphs 4 and 5, and looking at this issue of how we can best support the goals for founder stock and also how we best understand parental and breeding stock or specimens. And I find it's helpful to review that as a decision that is separate from our consideration of guidance on legal acquisition findings so that we can focus on the core issue and not conflate that with the obligation in the convention to make an acquisition finding in accordance to the laws of your own state. So we would indicate our preferences to explore the approach the EU is presenting, but of course we're willing to go with the will of the room. Thank you.
United Kingdom, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. We would also appreciate the EU's amendments in a ComDoc to review. Thank you.
United States of America, you have the floor.
The United States supports the Chair's approach forward with discussing it intersessionally. I think there's a lot that has been thrown out in the room, and we'd like to see everything discussed deliberately since it's such a really important issue for the United States and others.
New Zealand, you have the floor.
Thank you. We agree. We would like the Secretariat's approach. This issue warrants fulsome discussion. Thank you.
Brazil, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. It's just to support the statements made by the US and the New Zealand in supporting the Chair's approach. And I would also like to recall that from what we heard from the floor, we had support for the inclusion of founder stock at the draft guidance. So we would prefer to see it included in the draft guidance, so we would not reopen the debate in every meeting that we have for the coming years. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. So I think what we will do is that in order to get everyone's inputs in, Secretariat will work on a ComDoc to combine 20EE with the info doc that was received so that we get everyone's inputs in, because I think it's very difficult now to actually edit and just put a language out there. So there will be a ComDoc published, and we can discuss this after the ComDoc has been done. Can we agree to that? Any strong objections? So we will put this agenda item on hold and come back again. Thank you. Interpreter, can we have 10 minutes more? Thank you. Thank you very much. So now I am at Agenda 63, definition of the term appropriate and acceptable destinations. This document is submitted by the Standing Committee in consultation with the Chair of the Alamos Committee. So there's 3 revised decisions in the annex. I will now open the floor to parties. European Union, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I speak on behalf of the EU and its member states. The EU supports the renewal of decisions 19.164 to 19.166 as agreed by the Animals Committee and Standing Committee. We remind that the Animals Committee has further identified the need to clarify the application and interpretation of footnote 1 of Resolution Conf 1120 Rev Corp 18, on appropriate and acceptable destination, specifically related to re-export of elephants that were already kept ex situ outside of range countries, such as in zoo and circuses. SC 78 therefore has requested the Secretariat to consider this matter in its report to the next meeting of the Animals Committee. We are of the view that such clarification is important to ensure a harmonized application of the resolution among parties. While we noted that this specific topic is not part of the draft decisions that are now proposed to the COP, to our understanding, it is sufficient that the Standing Committee has mandated the Secretariat to investigate the issue and report to the Animals Committee, and that no additional decision by the COP is needed now for the purpose to follow up on that matter. However, we wanted to use this opportunity to make sure these open questions are not overlooked and will be followed up on during the process. Thank you, Chair.
India, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. India wishes to thank the Standing Committee for the document. While India supports the renewal of decisions 19.164 to 19.166 on the definition of the term appropriate and acceptable destination, we wish to suggest the following amendments. In annexure to COP 2063, in the draft decision paragraph 19.164, the Secretariat shall A. Issue a notification to the parties. The words within 1 year of the close of 20th meeting or conference of parties may be amended to within 6 months of the close of 20th meeting or conference of parties. By doing so, the matter could be considered for discussion during the 81st meeting of Standing Committee. Thank you, Chair.
I open the floor to parties, to non-parties and observer organizations. Born Free Foundation.
Thank you, Chair. I'm making this intervention on behalf of 11 observer organisations. We support the recommendation to renew decisions 19.164 to 19.166. We recommend that parties consider revisions to the guidance documents, as the guidance currently assumes without evidence that ex situ trade promotes in situ conservation for all species. And with regard to African elephants, the guidance is not consistent with ResConf 1120, RevCop 18, on definition of the term appropriate and acceptable destinations, which states that the only appropriate and acceptable destinations are in situ conservation programs within their natural habitat, except in exceptional circumstances. This definition should be incorporated into the guidance and into annotation A10 on Loxodonta africana, where ResConf 1120, RevCop 18 is currently referenced. Thank you, Chair.
I turn to the Secretariat for the timeline on the notification. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Concerning the suggestion of amending the timeline from 1 year to 6 months, the Secretariat would like to point out that the decisions that are agreed or adopted at this Conference of the Parties only come into force 3 months after the close of the meeting. And you will note that in Part B, the Secretariat is also has to report on the outcome of the notification, so collate all the responses and everything to report to the Animals Committee first. And the Animals Committee will meet in July, and the deadline for those documents would be in April. So this is we feel this is an unrealistic timeline, which is why a 1 year timeline is far more realistic, so that we can report to the Animals Committee first. Thank you.
Thank you. I heard agreement to renew the decisions 19.164 to 19.166, and I have no more requests from the floor. So the committee accepts the revision of decisions 19.164 to 19.166 in document 63. Thank you. So I close this agenda item.
You can say.
Okay, I will close the session for today, but please take note that we are almost a day behind. So please try to be on time, and we will start with item 38 tomorrow. But thank you very much for your short interventions and very concise and precise. Thank you so much. I'll turn to Secretariat for housekeeping.
I have two housekeeping announcements. First, the Bureau is meeting shortly after this session is finished, so about 5:15 in the Lawn Orchid Room. We also have a request to make an announcement for participants in the UNIA Baeza Master's Course on CITES. So this includes both current and former students and lecturers. There will be a group photo tomorrow, Friday the 28th, right after the morning session concludes, next to the Committee 1 stage. So there will be a photo opportunity for the current and former students and lecturers of the UNIA Baeza Master's Course on CITES tomorrow after the morning session next to the Committee 1 stage, and I have been told that no absences are allowed. Thank you, and I wish you a good night.